What else? I'll say yes, of course. The Dragon Maiden's voice carried across the mist. Why do you want to find Long Shiba? A spark of fiery determination flickered in Guomei's eyes. The fact that the Dragon King was also female seemed to give her even more confidence in vying for the titles of mountain or river god. He took something from me, he's nothing but a despicable, wretched beast. I have to find him. Guomei feigned the stance of a wronged victim. I froze. The nerve! Her bold-faced slandering was completely outrageous. The Dragon Maiden chuckled for the first time. So, you're telling me you were the one he stole from? She was laughing at Guomei's shamelessness. I was speechless. This level of audacity was truly off the charts. This is the 7/52 section of the content. Processing according to my logic while maintaining the original paragraph structure, line breaks, and overall layout as requested. I heard he actually caused a scene at the Yellow River Dragon King's wedding and even kidnapped the bride. Such a shameless person, I must find him. Guomei said angrily. Once you find him, do you want me to help you kill him? The Yangtze River Dragon Maiden asked. I cleared my throat. If you start something, you have to see it through, the Dragon Maiden added. I stared at her speechlessly. No need for the Dragon King to bother, I want to kill him with my own hands. Guomei quickly said. I squinted my eyes, sensing she must have some other motive for coming to me. All right, the Dragon Maiden agreed. Thank you, Dragon King. Guomei exhaled in relief. This is a token of my sincerity, please accept this copy of the preface to the Orchid Pavilion. With that, she tossed a long box over. The Dragon Maiden raised her hand, catching it in midair. She opened the box, and it indeed revealed the legendary calligraphy piece, Preface to the Orchid Pavilion, which had recently appeared at an auction. Her eyes flickered with a trace of joy, it was evident she treasured the piece greatly. Closing the box, the Dragon Maiden fixed her gaze on me with a look of approval. The Orchid Pavilion is in my hands now, just as I thought. I didn't spend a single cent on it. I always keep my word, I shrugged. If you hand me over to her now, she'll probably offer you even more. Interested? No. I promised her something, but the timing of when I deliver is entirely up to me, she replied, shaking her head. What if I refuse to go along with this plan? I asked. Then I'll hand you over right now, the Dragon Maiden said. At that moment, Guomei continued, the second matter, I'd like to ask the Dragon King to write a letter of introduction. A letter of what? The Dragon Maiden sounded surprised. I was taken aback too. In this world, where there are dragons, there are also phoenixes. I want you to use this letter to help me connect with a real phoenix, Guomei said, eyes gleaming with a murderous intent. I froze. She wants to kill a phoenix? Her destiny marked her as the phoenix among men, and now she thinks no other phoenix deserves to exist? Such selfishness, it's beyond shocking. And yet, I couldn't help but admire her audacity. The Dragon Maiden immediately understood. She wants the heart and blood of a phoenix to aid her cultivation. But phoenixes haven't been seen for a millennium, even I have no idea where to find one. I froze again. Adding phoenix blood to one's cultivation would significantly accelerate power growth. Her ruthlessness went far beyond what I had imagined. It became clear, if I didn't take her out soon, she'd become a major threat. However, the Dragon Maiden didn't agree. Instead, she asked, what's the third matter? I want to be your friend, Guomei said confidently. I believe I'm more than qualified to be your friend. Pride radiated from her. I could tell she truly intended to exploit this opportunity to get closer to the Dragon Maiden and in turn, attempt to usurp the Dragon King's throne. Her ambitions were blatantly obvious. Lightning Mother had been right. Dragon Maiden, don't agree. I warned. Why not? She asked. She's trying to get closer to you to seize power. I explained. Perfect. I've been considering stepping down as Dragon King anyway, and you're welcome to abdicate as my chancellor too, the Dragon Maiden replied with a chuckle. Fair enough. In that case, go ahead and agree to her request, I said. Not a chance, she blurted, jokingly at first, but immediately clarified, I won't agree. The Dragon Maiden was far too clever to fall for something so transparent. All right, I mumbled. Does this mean I get to keep my chancellorship? And are there any late-night snacks tonight? There are, she replied without hesitation. Well, as long as there were snacks, life was manageable. Guomei noticed the Dragon Maiden's lack of response and her expression turned icy. Dragon King, we're both women. Why can't we be friends? More allies mean more opportunities. I've demonstrated nothing but sincerity. I'd really like her gone, the Dragon Maiden remarked coldly, her strong-willed nature showing through. Then have her show some real sincerity. I suggested. What sincerity? She should retrieve all of my dragon blood as a first step, I said firmly. The Dragon Maiden was taken aback, just about to object, when Guomei, who stood outside, suddenly spoke up, her eyes glinting. "Dragon King, is there someone else with you?" I just heard a man's voice. My face stiffened. Who would have thought she could pick up on that? Her capabilities were clearly nothing to underestimate. "Do I need to report to you who's by my side?" The Dragon Maiden's tone dropped, filled with authority that pressed forward ominously. Guomei's face shifted in shock, and then into an expression of fear. Quickly, she suppressed her emotions. "I misspoke, my apologies." It was clear she now realized the gap in power between her and the Dragon Maiden. Yet, a glimmer of resentment still lingered in her eyes. "You want to be friends? Fine, start by bringing me Dragon 18's dragon blood." The Dragon Maiden's voice was icy. "You want his dragon blood?" Guomei sounded surprised. "Is there an issue?" the Dragon Maiden retorted. "No," Guomei murmured. "Should I hold her here for you?" the Dragon Maiden asked me. I shook my head. "That's unnecessary. You may leave now," the Dragon Maiden told her, her tone distant and cold. Resentment flickered in Guomei's eyes again, but she restrained it. "Very well. Once I've retrieved the dragon blood, I'll return to see you. Hopefully, by then, we can speak face to face." I internally laughed at the thought. If she knew it was my request, how would she react? Still, recovering all of that dragon blood would be no easy feat even if her strength was sufficient for now. I suspected this wouldn't be straightforward. A gut feeling, like an oracle's warning, told me so. I could only hope she'd retrieve my dragon blood quickly so I could regain my half-dragon form before the Yellow River Dragon King's tribulation. That was my best chance. Guomei was about to leave when a sly smile suddenly appeared on her face. "Dragon King, I have one question for you." The Dragon Maiden didn't reply, clearly uninterested. "I hadn't planned on saying this, but your attitude has disappointed me. Here's a warning. I recently had a series of encounters that, combined with my unique destiny, have greatly enhanced my foresight." "Dragon King, aren't you curious about the premonition I had about you?" Guomei said, a smug grin spreading across her face. Her smirk disgusted me, and unease began to creep into my heart. For some reason, I suddenly thought of what Jiang Jiuxuan had said to the Lightning Mother during his divination. We, the Dragon Maiden and I, were in the same boat. At the time, I wondered whether it simply referred to the fact that we both shared dragon blood. But now, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger, something specifically targeting dragons, was on the horizon. What exactly had Jiang Jiuxuan seen in his reading for the Lightning Mother? The Dragon Maiden's eyes narrowed slightly. "Dragon King," Guomei announced with a sinister smile, "you are about to face a great catastrophe." The Dragon Maiden's gaze remained calm. She had weathered countless storms over the millennia. What was one more calamity? My own master, Jiang Jiuxuan, had warned me about this before. Now it seemed my fears and Guomei's words were aligning. If the Dragon Maiden was heading toward disaster, did that mean, as her so-called shipmate, I wouldn't escape unscathed? I've given it some thought. Maybe the Yellow River Dragon King knows I'm siding with the Dragon Maiden, which is why he sent someone to stir up trouble. But this possibility seems slim. "Dragon Maiden, have her stop first. Let's talk this out," I suggested cautiously. "Trouble or not, bring it on. Soldiers face incoming troops, water is met with earth to dam it." The Yangtze Dragon Maiden replied with unwavering calm, as if she was used to such situations. This time, it might be different. I grew serious. Guomei's awakened Phoenix life destiny was clearly enhancing her premonitions, revealing she was prepared, not acting on blind impulse. I hadn't anticipated her intuition would be this precise, a sort of sixth sense that seemed to be an inherent gift of the Phoenix. No wonder the Yangtze Dragon Maiden said she hadn't seen a phoenix in over 1,000 years. Could it be the phoenixes foresaw something and hid away for centuries? That made sense. After all, phoenixes and dragon maidens were sort of allies, weren't they? They were both women. Not meeting for a millennium had to have a reason. Still, I wasn't sure if my speculation was correct. The Yangtze Dragon Maiden was slightly taken aback but eventually asked, "What do you mean?" Hearing her speak, Guomei smirked smugly. "All I know is that, Dragon King, you're facing a calamity. Now that we're friends, maybe it's time you think this through. I might be able to help you avoid it with my premonitions." Her intuition was vague, but since it aligned with my mentor's warnings, it did feel unsettling. Perhaps the calamity was imminent. The Yangtze Dragon Maiden, however, remained unmoved. Having weathered so many storms, her heart had clearly hardened. "But Dragon King," Guomei said coldly, glancing toward me, "beware of those around you. Danger is everywhere." Her gaze was sharp yet cryptic, as if she couldn't fully understand me but had nonetheless pinpointed my position. I frowned. Wasn't this like using a borrowed knife to assign blame to me? Too cunning, how ruthless she was, even to strangers. If it weren't for my plan to use her to seize the dragon blood, I'd have dealt with her by now and shown her what I was capable of. Gua Mei walked ashore and drove off, leaving me deep in thought. The next time we met, I'd make sure to give her a surprise. She just warned me to be wary of you, the Yangtze dragon maiden remarked. Her gaze was completely unguarded, clearly offering the comment casually. You could dismiss me then, I replied. She glanced at me briefly, waved her hand gently, and the mist surrounding the boat dissipated instantly. Come, I'll read your fortune. Without hesitation, I made the decision. If this calamity involved me, I had to figure out a strategy quickly. All right. The Yangtze dragon maiden nodded. We entered the boat. While I prepared the tools for the fortune-telling, an idea struck me. I turned to her and said, looking at the golden veil covering her face, take off the veil first. I need to observe your facial features. Li Hu, who knelt at the bow of the boat, froze. He likely hadn't seen the dragon maiden's true face in a long time, his gaze was filled with anticipation. But he protested, Master, what right does he have to see your true face? 2,000 years ago, you were already one of the 4 unmatched beauties of the mortal world. Your beauty is unmatched, he is unworthy. The Yangtze dragon maiden paused but silenced Li Hu with a mere glance, prompting him to quickly lower his head. She remained silent, so I simply said, if you're unwilling, it's fine. She had worn the veil for so long that it was only natural for her to shield her appearance from others. But I had once seen her at the Yellow River Dragon King's wedding. From just her eyes, I could already tell she was breathtakingly beautiful. After a brief hesitation, she finally raised her pale, slender hand and removed the golden veil. I couldn't help but watch her elegant movements as she unveiled her face, unable to look away. In that moment, it was like gazing at a masterpiece of art. The golden veil slid from her cheeks, and the first thing to come into view was her high bridge of a nose, impeccable in its contour like undulating mountain ridges. Next, her milky white, silky smooth cheeks were revealed, as flawless and tender as porcelain bathed in moonlight. When the veil reached her lips, I paused. Her lips were alluring, pink, luscious, like ripe peaches that would awaken anyone's appetite. As the veil fully fell away, there stood before me a face that could charm an entire kingdom, utterly stunning. She was a vision worthy of being called the ruler of the river, her beauty was otherworldly. Xing Feng. Li Hu, still kneeling at the bow, couldn't help but steal a glance. He was instantly dumbfounded. The Yangtze dragon maiden shot him a sharp look. Li Hu yelped in realization, swallowed audibly, and reluctantly averted his eyes, bowing his head in submission. To my amazement-struck expression, she said nothing. She simply gazed at me quietly. In the stillness, her allure was almost unreal. I quickly shook off my stupor and scrutinized her features with purpose. My brow furrowed in concern as I noticed something alarming about her fate lines. Her life palace was in a precarious state. Why? Jiang Jiuxuan had once said that I, too, was on the same metaphorical boat as the dragon maiden. If her facial fortune was this grim, mine couldn't possibly be much better. I pulled out my divination tools, 10 copper coins and a tortoiseshell. I need to draw energy from your life palace, I informed her. All right. She didn't resist as I extended a finger to touch her brow lightly. Her skin was faintly warm, smooth, and delicate, yet the sensation seemed to ripple through my entire being. I withdrew my hand, kneaded the gathered energy into the copper coins, placed them into the tortoiseshell, and instructed sternly, stay calm. Do not resist. All right, she agreed. I shook the tortoiseshell, the copper coins gave a crisp, resonant sound as they collided. When they settled, the outcome was unlike any fortune I'd read before. An abrupt chill ran down my spine. All 10 copper coins landed showing their darkened sides, naturally forming the character for calamity. No doubt about it, this was a dire omen. Could it be that the disaster targeting dragons was really happening? Swallowing hard, I said, Dragon Maiden, we need to get out of here. All right. With a wave of her hand, the boat began to move along the water. What's happening? She pressed. I didn't hold back. Her expression froze when she heard what I had to say. Do you remember my mentor asking the Electric Mother about something? I asked. I remember, she mentioned the Jade Emperor, the Yangtze Dragon Maiden replied. Then I understand why my mentor raised that topic back then. Something grave is unfolding. It seems heaven is making plans for the dragons, I explained, the situation growing ever more alarming. Her face fell. Why? I don't know, but the signs aren't good. Logically, the dragons of the mortal realm hadn't provoked the celestial deities. Why was this happening? There must be another reason. We dragons already hold a low status in heaven, there's no reason for the Jade Emperor to target us directly, she theorized. Perhaps I'm overthinking it, I mused wryly. After all, Dragons weren't spared at celestial banquets like the Peach Festival. Even dishes like dragon liver made the menu. As a half-dragon, you don't have to worry, she consoled. I forced a wry smile. My master said she and I are destined to be in the same boat, half-dragon or not. She hesitated for a moment. So, what now? I'm not exactly sure. Whatever this calamity is, it seems to be targeting you first. We'll need to handle it step by step, I said, resigned. It might be something brewing over by the Yangtze River, or perhaps some other cause. After all, calamities don't strike randomly, they're deliberate. I gathered up the copper coins, deciding to wait until Jiang Jiuxuan could decipher the hexagram fully before figuring out the next steps. That last reading had been ominous. If I forced another divination, I might end up like last time, completely drained and passed out for days. All right, the Yangtze dragon lady said calmly. Her face now composed. She didn't bother to put back on her golden veil and instead headed toward the kitchen. What are you doing? I asked. Didn't you say you wanted a late-night snack? She countered. I froze. There could be trouble at any moment. I don't even have an appetite right now. You're my chancellor and my person. I won't let anything happen to you, she said matter-of-factly as she entered the kitchen. Her composure was unwavering. Her words, though so lightly spoken, somehow gave me a sense of security. She was taking responsibility for me. By the time I snapped out of it, she was setting a steaming bowl of noodles down before me. I quickly accepted it. Oh, by the way, I reminded her, don't let your dragon blood circulate internally for now. Store it instead, it'll help diminish the dragon aura around you a bit. She simply gave a brief reply before returning to her room. Gazing down at the warm, fragrant noodles, I wasted no time devouring the meal and even drank the broth. Once back in my room, I sat cross-legged and eagerly swallowed the pill I'd prepared earlier. The moment it slid down my throat, it felt like I had swallowed a fiery coal. A searing heat spread from my throat to my stomach, but it was quickly replaced by a comforting warmth. A surge of energy coursed through me, immediately sharpening my senses. No wonder this pill had cost 50 million, it was worth every dime. I hastened to absorb its power, hoping to ascend to the 6th stage as a fortune-teller. But then, an icy chill crawled up my spine, and my eyes snapped open. The lightning-struck bamboo I kept for cultivation radiated a faint charge as it warned me, Master, there's killing intent. I sprang to my feet and bolted out of my room. The oppressive aura of killing intent permeated the air. Could my earlier suspicion have been right, and the disturbance truly originated from the Yangtze River? The Yangtze dragon lady emerged from her quarters at the same time, her expression somber. She had also sensed the threat. Go back inside, she instructed me. But we were in this together. If something happened to her, I couldn't run from the consequences either. Fighting side by side would be our best option. I refused her suggestion. You've just taken the elixir, haven't you? She questioned. I nodded. Then don't waste it. If you step in now, that pill will have been for nothing, she scolded and headed toward the bow of the boat. Without hesitation, I drew my lightning-struck bamboo sword and joined her, standing shoulder to shoulder as we both faced the threat ahead. The area was unnervingly silent, save for the sound of flowing water. The killing intent was so overwhelming that even the birds and fish had retreated into frightful seclusion. I hadn't pinpointed the exact source yet when the Yangtze dragon lady pulled her golden veil back over her face and leaped into the air. Li Hu, who knelt at the bow of the boat, was clearly startled by the sudden development. His wary gaze flicked around nervously. Something's in the water, he exclaimed, focusing on a specific area. I followed his gaze and spotted a massive dark shadow flickering beneath the surface, circling the boat. The creature's repeated ramming against the hull caused only slight rocking, unable to tip the boat over. What audacity! A river spirit from the Yangtze dares to cause trouble in front of Qingfeng? Li Hu sneered, venom dripping from his voice. It was clear this attack was directed at the Yangtze dragon lady. As expected, she had already identified the large shadow underwater while hovering above. Pointing toward it, she conjured a surge of turbulent waves accompanied by a pained screech. The creature under the surface retreated quickly after the attack but lingered, seemingly waiting for another opportunity to strike. Narrowing my eyes, I managed to make out the figure of a giant green fish, weighing at least 200 to 300 pounds. Its fins resembled tiny human arms, evidence that it had achieved some level of spiritual transformation, cultivating for over a millennium. But there was something unnerving about the creature. Its eyes glowed a bright, maddening crimson, feral and out of control like a rabid beast. What was going on? A 1,000-year-old spirit shouldn't emit this kind of ferocious killing intent. The Yangtze dragon lady frowned, her hand sweeping through the water to effortlessly lift the fish spirit out. The green fish shot into the air like it had been caught in a fountain and landed helplessly before her. It thrashed violently in vain, her dominance was absolute. Her cold gaze fell upon the creature, but she refrained from killing it. After all, it was one of the spirits under her domain. With a simple incantation, the fish trembled all over. The maddening crimson in its eyes dissipated, replaced by terror as it regained clarity and faced the Yangtze dragon lady. "Explain yourself. What happened? Why have you abandoned the territory I assigned to you?" she demanded in a frosty tone. The fish spirit quivered, stammering, "Dragon King, I don't know what's happening." Its fear was palpable. The Yangtze dragon lady's gaze remained icy, unable to deduce the cause of its erratic behavior. "Bring it here. I need to examine it," I called out. If there was trouble beneath the waters, then as her chancellor, it was my duty to address it. This was my first underwater crisis. She nodded and floated back toward the boat with the green fish spirit in tow. Suddenly, the fish spirit convulsed in pain. "Be careful," I warned sharply. Its eyes reddened once more as it went berserk, its body swelling grotesquely before exploding into bits. Shards of razor-sharp fish bones, each the size of a human arm and as thick as a finger, erupted like a barrage of arrows. The deadly fragments surrounded the Yangtze dragon lady in a storm of lethal edges, aiming to tear her apart like a swarm of angry wasps. But her response was effortless. Without moving so much as a finger, the fishbone struck an invisible barrier around her and fell harmlessly into the river with a series of dull plunks. Her protective aura had activated, shielding her from harm. I let out a breath of relief, amazed at her poise and unshaken resolve in the face of such a sudden and deadly assault. This was no ordinary person. Even when caught off guard, she maintained complete mastery over the situation. That was a futile attack by a 1,000-year-old fish spirit? Li Hu scoffed disdainfully. Laughable. I ignored him, an uneasy feeling growing in my chest. There was something strange about this entire situation. The fish spirit clearly lost control for a reason. But what caused it? The Yangtze dragon lady approached, her expression puzzled. "This fish spirit was originally in waters 100 miles from here. I don't understand how it ended up here," she said. "Was it controlled by a spell, or did it lose itself entirely?" I probed. Its blood-red eyes suggested something malevolent was at play. "It wasn't a spell," she replied. "Its innate demonic nature was forcibly amplified, driving it mad." I wondered aloud, how could their demonic nature suddenly flare up? Does this have to do with that tribulation? It feels like a random incident, even you can't figure it out. She looked at me and said, "Come, my prime minister, this one's on you." I pondered, "Say a word, and I'll divine." She casually uttered, "Fish." Not long before, in the territory she guarded, a fish spirit had died. I could tell it bothered her. She'd been reluctant to let even ordinary fish be killed, despite her domineering nature, often displaying solidarity toward her subordinates. Honestly, working under her didn't seem so bad. I began to study the word. A few minutes later, my eyes lit up. "Fish? You?" I asked her, "Have you ever heard of Dayu and his flood management?" Her eyes flickered slightly. "Of course. Are you saying?" I nodded. "My master spoke of it often when I was young. Approximately 4,000 years ago, during the Xia period, there was a massive flood. Emperor Yao called for capable figures to manage the water. Dayu's father, Gun, initially attempted to control the flood by building dikes, but his methods were flawed, and the flooding only intensified. 9 years later, he was executed. Heartbroken, Dayu vowed to carry on his father's work and successfully quelled the flood within a few years. Legend has it that Dayu primarily focused on dredging and diversion, but he nearly failed too. One night, he dreamed of a veiled woman who instructed him to retrieve a sacred stone from the heavens to pacify the upstream source of the flood. Upon waking, he immediately dispatched men to retrieve the stone and placed it at the water's origin. The flood, which had wreaked havoc for over a decade, was finally subdued by this single stone. The identity of the woman in his dream was never revealed, but my master believed she must have been a water spirit with great responsibility. At that moment, the lady of the Yangtze River, her expression peculiar as though recalling something, murmured, "Your master was talking about her?" I nodded. "Indeed. My master also said that the sacred flood control stone remains within the Yangtze River, safeguarding it from demonic interference. With its presence, the spirits in the waters are kept in check." But if this fish spirit suddenly lost control, could it be that someone has tampered with the stone? And considering the connection between the characters fish and you, the issue with controlling the flood likely stems from the sacred stone. The lady of the Yangtze River murmured softly, "I'd nearly forgotten about that." I was taken aback. "Dragon lady, what did you just say?" "Nothing," she replied, shaking her head. "What else did your master tell you?" "That's about it. But I still find it strange, if this woman from Dayu's dream truly existed, why didn't she appear in person? Why disturb him via a dream instead of just showing up? She liked to conduct herself that way, the dragon lady replied. Her tone caught me off guard. What did she mean by that? It seems this disaster is targeting you as the dragon queen of the Yangtze, and it came without warning, I said gravely. The situation seemed dire. If the sacred stone had indeed been disturbed, the fish spirits within the river could all lose control and succumb to their base, chaotic instincts. Should they wreak havoc, the resulting fatalities would be pinned on the dragon lady. If heaven decided to act, the Jade Emperor might even order her execution. As her prime minister, I wouldn't escape punishment either. A chill ran down my spine. I suddenly realized this calamity was aimed squarely at the dragon lady and me. I voiced my suspicions, to which the dragon lady coldly quipped, "Fine. You're fired. Leave." I'd love to, but I've already boarded the ship. I'm part of this now, I can't just walk away. I sighed helplessly, sensing that the road ahead was far more complicated than it seemed. I'll bear the consequences of my actions. I won't drag you down, she said. Well, you'd better hold up. I'm not keen on dying here, I retorted. She gazed at me. What if I am? You've lived for a few millennia, but I'm still young, I shot back unapologetically. She took a deep breath, her stare piercing through me. Quickly, I blurted, let's move. Head to the sacred stone. I accepted my role as your prime minister, and I'll help you handle this. Trust me. Something flickered in her eyes before she turned her focus back to steering the boat. The vessel surged forward like a speedboat, leaving towering sprays of water in its wake. I asked if she'd ever encountered an ordeal this severe while managing the Yangtze. Yes, when I first took over, back in Dayu's time, she replied. Her response left me stunned. In the waters around us, the larger fish were panicking, darting erratically and colliding with each other as though disoriented. Some even leapt from the water, behaving like prey shocked by high voltage. The larger the fish, the more frenzied they became. They began attacking smaller fish. Blood-tainted water spread across the surface as fish floated belly up, dismembered, or missing heads and tails. The sheer brutality painted a harrowing picture. My worst fears materialized. This wasn't just about the green fish spirit losing control. Worse yet, we spotted a fishing boat being rocked violently. Beneath it, a colossal black fish about 3 meters long was ramming the vessel. Its bloodshot eyes mirrored the madness of the green fish spirit, brimming with murderous intent. The fishermen aboard were petrified. The dragon lady fired a beam of light, striking the black fish. Jolted back to its senses, it made eye contact with her and fled into the depths, terrified. Though the fishermen were spared, the Yangtze River stretched vast and wide. Several such attacks were likely unfolding simultaneously. The dragon lady couldn't possibly save everyone. Looking at her now faint life force, I realized the situation was even graver than imagined. Hundreds must have fallen victim already. The carnage was immense, excessive enough to dim her life force ominously. If this continued, the dragon lady might genuinely face execution. Hurry! I urged her. She didn't respond, only quickened the boat further. Even Li Hu, who had been kneeling on deck, stood up anxiously. Over the next hour, the dragon lady intervened 13 times, saving over 100 people. In one instance, she severely injured an enraged turtle spirit and rescued more than 30 lives on her own. But her life force grew darker by the minute, signifying that casualties in other areas were piling up outside her grasp. Finally, nestled between two mountains, I witnessed a shocking sight. Tens of thousands of fish had surfaced belly up, their pale, glistening bodies covering the water as far as the eye could see. The layers of death stretched endlessly, each suffocating gasp painting a gruesome portrait of devastation. More chilling still was the whirlpool forming in the middle of the river, signaling that something massive lurked beneath, redirecting the very flow of the Yangtze. My deductions had been right. The problem originated with the U connection. The lady of the Yangtze stood motionless, her eyes icy yet tinged with sorrow. These fish were her people. She had protected them for centuries, never even eating them, yet now, so many had perished. She couldn't hide the pain in her eyes. Before the ship came to a full stop, she dove into the river without hesitation. In an instant, she vanished into the depths. Li Hu muttered, Qingfeng's doomed this time, total dereliction of duty. I didn't respond. Less than a minute later, the dragon lady shot back out of the water, landing gracefully aboard as if untouched by it. Yet her aura was tenfold heavier than before. It was clear she'd inspected the ancient flood control stone. Something had happened to it. Something catastrophic. This disaster appeared out of nowhere, I muttered in disbelief. I couldn't help myself. The sacred stone, what's its condition? Gone, she said curtly. My stomach dropped. Could it have been stolen? Who? And why? This is section 1152. I'll process it logically for you while preserving the original paragraph structure, line breaks, and layout. Here's the result. I said, let me calculate where it went. She was stunned. No, it was destroyed. She seemed somewhat dazed. As the guardian of the Yangtze River, this was the first time she'd encountered such a severe situation. I was also shocked. Couldn't even she control this? But this was fate. I began to ponder, could we find a substitute to temporarily suppress the demonic essence? Dragon Lady, don't panic. Let me do a divination. I'm not panicking, I just want to know if I'll lose my head over this. She gazed at me calmly. Her eyes were fearless, yet held traces of longing, as if she were thinking of her younger brother. Her life palace was so dark, and it was likely due to this very reason. The Jinghead Dragon King altered the rainfall count and was decapitated. Her situation was worse. In less than 2 hours, the incident of the water sealing stone had already caused over 1,000 deaths. All this karma was now attributed to her, not to mention the massive deaths of fish. It won't happen, I said. Are you comforting me? She asked. I'm your chancellor. I haven't given up on you. There's still a chance. No matter what, if she perished, I wouldn't escape death either. On board this vessel, none of us could afford to fall. Can the water sealing stone be replaced? I asked. It can, but it'll take too long. Finding a suitable stone will take at least 10 days. Meanwhile, I've already sensed tens of thousands of restless spirits stirring underwater. Is there any temporary substitute? No. Hearing this, my expression darkened. At this moment, Li Hu chimed in to advise, Master, you'd better find somewhere to hide. That suggestion was typical of his irresponsible nature. The Yangtze Dragon Lady's gaze turned icy. When troubles arise, we fight. I am the ruler of the Yangtze River. If I flee when disaster strikes, how could I have the dignity to continue living? My home of thousands of years, how could I abandon it? Even if I were truly to lose my head, I'd first resolve this matter before admitting my guilt. Her words were so resolute that even Li Hu looked ashamed. I, on the other hand, wasn't surprised. For her to say such a thing meant she wasn't as cold as she seemed on the surface. She was domineering, but she treated her family well. She was stoic, yet she never harmed the fish in her domain, quiet and reserved, but never one to back away when faced with adversity. She was a worthy dragon king over one of our nation's greatest rivers. In comparison, she easily outshone the Yellow River's dragon king. But given how dire things had become now, how could we salvage the situation? I started to grow anxious. Unexpectedly, as her prime minister, my first task was turning out to be so exasperating. I had initially thought to impress her, but instead, I found myself powerless. The Yangtze Dragon Lady surveyed the surroundings, her expression brimming with anguish as fish surfaced belly up from the depths of the water. The surrounding whirlpools grew fiercer. Unable to stand it any longer, she ascended swiftly into the sky and began casting spells to suppress the monstrous demonic essence below. Beams of spiritual light shot from her hands into the river, causing the surface to churn violently, interspersed with guttural growls of pain. Yet, the whirlpools grew larger and more numerous. The closer these demons drew toward the shattered water sealing stone, the more chaotic they became. She didn't relent but instead intensified her exertions. Yet this course of action couldn't be sustained indefinitely. With so many evil doings occurring one after another, it was only a matter of time before both she and I ended up facing execution. I was powerless. Demons were meant to be kept in check, but with nothing to subdue them now, they had descended into unrestrained savagery. What are you standing there dazed for? Think of something. Aren't you the Chancellor of Qingfeng? How can you just watch all this unfold? Li Hu sneered. I understood his motivations. As long as he hadn't claimed the Yangtze Dragon Lady for himself, he'd never allow her to lose her head. Won't you help, then? Useless. The situation's so grave, yet you don't even have the strength to assist. You're unworthy of your title as Chancellor. Don't forget, you've eaten 3 bowls of noodles I personally cooked. Spit them out now if you're that incompetent, he mocked and berated me. At that moment, Li Hu suddenly fell to his knees trembling, frightened rigid by the Dragon Lady's piercing glare. Is criticizing others all you're good for? She asked coldly. But, mistress, he really can't accomplish anything here. Li Hu mustered enough courage to retort. If the situation's beyond him, that's understandable. Say another word, and I'll make you silent forever. The Dragon Lady didn't seem the least bit critical of me, as if she fully comprehended the unexpected difficulty of the circumstances. Li Hu paled, his face drained of color. Long Shiba, I know you've already tried your best, the Yangtze Dragon Lady said gently. Was she trying to console me? I froze momentarily before an idea struck me. Dragon Lady, come down here. I have a plan. Hearing my call, the Dragon Lady descended with firm resolve. The recent spellcasting had already drained her spirit. She was cautious not to harm the fish spirits under her care and had been carefully measured in her efforts. Do you trust me? I asked directly. Yes, she nodded without hesitation, as if her trust was unconditional. All right. Summon all the rampant fish spirits here, I instructed. I continued. As the river god, she had ultimate dominion over all demons in the river under her jurisdiction. My master had told me before, mountain spirits and river gods have their tokens of power. The Yangtze Dragon Lady, wielding the river god's token, most certainly could manage it. With the river god's token, she could summon all creatures under her dominion. Before she could respond, Li Hu quickly objected. This idea is too dangerous. Do you realize how many spirits have turned into monsters in the Yangtze? If you summon them all, numbered in the hundreds or thousands, the demonic energy will pierce the heavens. It'll be impossible to control them. This is madness. Mistress, don't listen to his nonsense. The Dragon Lady raised her hand, silencing Li Hu with a pitiful yelp. He no longer dared interrupt. Her gaze remained fixed on me as she said, keep talking. I explained, this is condensing chaos into order. Right now, the slaughter and chaos prevail because the demons are too scattered. As soon as we eliminate one, another emerges. We can't be everywhere at once. The only solution is to summon them all here and subdue them together. It'll be far more efficient. The Dragon Lady's eyes brightened at my suggestion, and she nodded approvingly. Good. That's a great idea. Her gaze toward me carried a newfound respect. Li Hu, however, expressed doubt, but that's incredibly risky. The overwhelming demonic energy could set off other anomalies. Hundreds of spirits gathered in one place, can you really control that? The Dragon Lady retorted coldly, say one more word, and I will end you. Li Hu's face turned ashen, and he didn't dare utter another syllable. The Dragon Lady asked me gently, shall I begin the summoning now? I countered with my own question, how many spirits in the Yangtze have gained sentience? According to last month's records, there are 893, she replied. I probed further. How many have cultivated over 1,000 years? 109. And those who've surpassed 2,000 years? 57. And finally, those over 3,000? 8. Here is your processed content, maintaining the original paragraph structure, line breaks, and overall layout as requested. I commanded, set up the formation first. Otherwise, if hundreds of demons lose control, the consequences will be disastrous. Facing so many adversaries, preparation was essential. She nodded in agreement, ready to ascend and arrange the formation. I cautioned her, don't take this lightly. I understand, but I really think your method is the best, she replied, already flying into the air. With a solemn gaze, she began casting her spell. Rubbing her hands together, spiritual light surged forth as 10 directional array flags shot outward, sealing off a 3-mile radius. While reciting incantations, her pale hands weaved through intricate gestures. 10 seconds later, the flags emitted a low hum. Spiritual light connected them, converging like tides into a massive, multicolored light screen, which appeared impenetrable. But would it hold against hundreds of rampaging demons? That, I didn't know. After completing the formation, the Yangtze River Dragon Maiden flipped her palm, revealing a gold plaque the size of her palm, engraved with a single character, command. It radiated an invisible yet commanding aura. The plaque exuded an immortal energy, an authority that felt natural and unyielding. The Dragon Maiden pointed a finger at the plaque. Instantly, a resonant dragon's roar echoed, a sound so deep and far-reaching that it reverberated along both banks of the Yangtze River. Its sheer volume caused the nearby waters to churn violently. All spirits and creatures, heed my command, assemble here immediately. Defiance will not be tolerated, disobedience means death. Her voice carried weight like a 1,000-mile transmission, spreading to all corners. Spirits who received the orders began rushing toward this location at top speed. At that moment, the Dragon Maiden hovered midair, her flowing hair billowing gently in the wind. The authority of a ruler of rivers radiated from her, unchallengeable. Then, she descended back toward me. I noticed that her previously clouded destiny line had slightly brightened, a sign that my method might be working. Though the spirits had ceased their slaughter, they were madly converging on us. I relayed this observation to her, and the Dragon Maiden exhaled deeply. Whether this succeeds or fails, I'll see to it you're rewarded. Let's get through this first, I replied solemnly. No, you've outperformed any chancellor I've ever had. I want to reward you now. Tell me, what do you want? She stared at me intently. Li Hu, still kneeling at the bow of the boat, froze in shock. Let's leave it for later. I honestly didn't have any particular needs at this moment. No, you must say it now, the Dragon Maiden insisted. Why are you in such a hurry? I teased. She froze, then stammered, Let's leave it for later, I repeated. You call the shots. Alright, then, sleep with me for a night. I deliberately said it, just to dissuade her from thinking of rewards. Her astonished silence was telling. Li Hu's eyes widened in utter disbelief, his expression almost comically stunned. Seeing her unresponsive anger, I cleared my throat and clarified, just joking. At this point, I think I owe you either my 5th or 6th life now? 6th one, the Dragon Maiden replied. Impressive memory. Since you insist on rewarding me, then I'll say this: I seek cultivation. I need that special bamboo and perhaps related artifacts. You know what I want, don't you? Of course. Good, then. There's a hidden pavilion of treasures I own. Go there yourself when you have the chance and choose what you want. I hesitated for a second before managing a grin. I might just clear the entire pavilion. Go ahead. It was then I felt a wave of demonic energy rushing toward our location, an indication that the spirits were closing in. I wasn't about to let her face that many alone, though I had my own measures to fall back on. Using energy to seal destiny lines would subdue frenzied spirits. They're here. The Dragon Maiden's eyes sharpened. In the distance, the waters churned violently as dozens of massive fish spirits raced toward us. She prepared to ascend once more, but I held her back. Not yet, wait until most of them are within the formation before acting. But there are too many, it's too risky, the Dragon Maiden expressed her concern. She wasn't wrong. Hundreds of spirits all at once, truly terrifying. Don't worry. I've got a plan ready. Act only when the time is right, I said, wearing a mysterious smirk. Her eyes lit up slightly. What plan? You'll see very soon, I teased, holding back details. Next time, just tell me up front, she sighed, restraining her growing curiosity. Next time, I said. Just as the words left my mouth, a deafening crash erupted. Dozens of enormous fish-like creatures weighing over 100 pounds each surged into the formation, their blood-red eyes glaring as they thrashed about wildly, sending waves sky-high amidst thick, oppressive demonic energy. The sky above darkened, heavy clouds blotting out the sun as if the light itself had been swallowed. The Dragon Maiden and I remained still. Then more came. Dozens more spirits arrived in waves, one among them visibly older with over 2,000 years of cultivation, weighing 700 or 800 pounds. Its sheer size dwarfed our boat, and with no human form, its demonic energy was overwhelming. Upon entering the formation, it roared fiercely, the sound alone piercing my eardrums painfully. My master had once mentioned that not all spirits take human form. Some avoid the transformation out of fear of the right's deadly lightning tribulation. This one clearly fell into that category. Other spirits were of slightly lower cultivation. With no suppressive treasure to calm them, their murderous aura was palpable and suffocating. Now over 100 spirits had entered, causing the formation to tremble ominously. But it was still not time to act. Kneeling at the bow, Li Hu's scalp was visibly tingling. Why haven't you made a move yet? The Dragon Maiden didn't answer, nor did I. Then came 3 more waves. The total number doubled to exceed 200. The formation now shook violently, its spiritual light faltering under the simultaneous attacks of so many monsters. Reverberating booms continued, but I kept a steady gaze. After over an hour, the count surpassed 500. All of them were terrifying fish spirits, each the size of a boat. Their sheer numbers formed an overwhelming tide of demonic energy, blanketing the heavens ominously. The formation began to sway like it would collapse any moment. Li Hu's face whitened, anxiety crept in. Why are you still not doing anything? Silence, the Dragon Maiden scolded coldly. Li Hu instantly went quiet. Surprised by her unwavering trust in me, I asked her, "You're not afraid I'll mess this up?" "What's there to fear?" she countered. I had no reply. As the influx of spirits gradually slowed, it appeared that some further away hadn't yet arrived, but the formation was already nearing its limit. I was caught in a dilemma. Noticing my hesitation, the Dragon Maiden retrieved 5 more array flags, reinforcing the formation in 5 strategic directions, temporarily stabilizing it. Still, she refrained from acting, waiting for my cue. 2 hours passed, and the number of spirits exceeded 600. The formation could no longer hold. Fractures formed all over as cracking sounds echoed from every corner. Those sounds alone were unnerving. I sensed something bad was imminent. Over 100 fish spirits began assaulting the boat directly. Fortunately, its construction was of exceptional quality, keeping it from capsizing. Still, the sheer number was terrifying. My unease grew. This is the content for section 13/52. I've processed the text following your instructions, preserving the original paragraph structure, line breaks, and overall layout. Here is the result. The Longjiang Dragon Maiden remained composed and wanted to continue reinforcing the formation. I interrupted, "That's enough. If we wait any longer, it might take an entire day to gather them all. Let's begin." "All right." She exhaled slightly and was just about to proceed when she looked at me with curiosity. "What was that method you mentioned earlier?" I didn't answer. Instead, I cautiously took a vial out of my pocket. The Dragon Maiden froze, and Li Hu's face changed drastically. That's the... "Yes," I said calmly, interrupting him. "It's the stuff you gave me to knock out the Dragon Maiden. I had originally planned to use it differently, but the urgency of the situation left me no choice but to bring it out now." Li Hu had told me that just a tiny bit of this substance could make someone sleep for 3 days and nights. With so many spirits before us, I wasn't expecting to knock them out for that long, just long enough to confuse them, so their resistance to our casting would be reduced. Li Hu lowered his head in silence. The Dragon Maiden squinted skeptically and sighed. "Why do you collect such things, Long Shiba?" "Relax. It's not for use against you," I reassured her. She gave me a sidelong glance. "Then why not try it on me?" "I'm not suicidal," I replied coldly. The Dragon Maiden paused, her eyes moving slightly before her tense brow relaxed. She seemed amused by my response. She quickly regained her usual composure and turned sternly to Li Hu. "Guard the formation and don't let a single spirit escape." "Yes, Master." Li Hu hesitated for a moment and glanced at me, clearly conflicted. Although the Dragon Maiden spoke civilly to me, her tone toward him was always frosty, and it was obvious he harbored some jealousy. Still, he wisely retreated into the distance to follow her orders. "Wait for my signal," I instructed. The Dragon Maiden nodded and ascended midair. I immediately drew my thunder bamboo sword, and with a single mental command, green light emanated from the blade, lifting me into the air to circle the area. Opening the vial carefully, I sprinkled the powder into the water below, cautious not to use more than necessary. Fine particles drifted down like rain, clouding the water on contact. A fish-like spirit was the first to react. It rushed forward but slammed headfirst into a rock. Though dazed instead of unconscious, its condition clearly showed its defenses had diminished. It was working. Relieved, I glanced at the Dragon Maiden, who allowed a faint breath of relief herself before casting a spell on the confused fish spirit. I continued spreading the powder, trying to cover the entire formation field as evenly as possible. Around us, numerous aquatic spirits convulsed and collided in visible disorientation. But the area to cover was too vast. By the time the vial was empty, only about 2/3 of the spirits, roughly 300 out of over 600, were affected. I grew restless. The Dragon Maiden also faltered momentarily. Running out of options, I tossed the now empty vial into the water and focused on gathering yang energy, preparing for a direct suppression of the remaining spirits. The Dragon Maiden and I locked eyes for a brief moment before nodding silently and moving separately to execute our respective plans. She was already showing signs of fatigue from prolonged high-intensity casting, having successfully neutralized over 60 spirits herself. Not even her status as a dragon ruler exempted her from such strain. It was only natural for her to be pushed to her limit. I couldn't help but wonder, why hadn't she called for more reinforcements earlier? But knowing her obstinate personality, it wasn't hard to guess why. Who would willingly work with someone so difficult? As this thought crossed my mind, an enormous wave suddenly surged toward me. Before I could react fully, the thunder bamboo sword carried me swiftly out of range. Looking back, I saw a carp spirit lunging at me, hostility written across its vicious face. Meeting its cold gaze, I formed a hand seal and directed my focus right at the creature's eyes. Yang energy surged forward, striking its blood-red pupils and diluting the dark aura emanating from them. The carp stopped flailing and blinked blankly, as though awakening from a haze of feral instincts. "Even after turning into a monster, you can't control your own demonic nature?" I muttered, unimpressed. The carp spirit bowed its head, seemingly ashamed, before stabilizing itself. I wasted no time moving on to the next target. Instrumental in my efficiency was the thunder bamboo sword, whose speed amplified by absorbing 2 vials worth of bamboo essence allowed me to weave seamlessly through the dense throng of spirits. Unfortunately, my escalating efforts provoked dozens of spirits into a frenzied counteroffensive, charging at me with reckless ferocity. Waves churned tumultuously, rippling with deadly force. Towering crests, over 5 or 6 meters high, crashed ominously. Several spirits leaped from the water to launch concentrated water blasts, forceful streams that crisscrossed the sky in a relentless assault. Unfazed, I released a cold snort and slashed downward with the bamboo sword, releasing a luminous blade of energy that sliced through 7 or 8 streams with surgical precision. Water mist filled the air as the disrupted currents rained harmlessly to the ground. Before I could relax, a new barrage approached, massive icicles over a meter in diameter jutting upward like sharpened stalagmites. These razor-sharp projectiles loomed from every angle, cutting off my avenues of escape. Only fish spirits at the peak of their abilities could summon such raw elemental power. Adrenaline surged as I prepared to swing again, but just as I braced myself for impact, an unexpected ray of light streaked in from afar, shattering the ice into a cascading spray of harmless fragments. Wind roared erratically as shattered shards melted midair. Momentarily stunned, I blinked only to see a tall figure appear beside me. Her breathing was uneven, her brow damp with sweat, none other than the Dragon Maiden herself. For the first time, I glimpsed a side to her that seemed almost vulnerable. Her typically flawless, snow-white complexion was now marked with an ashen pallor, making her tired appearance strikingly delicate. She had spent the last hour casting spell after spell, pushing herself to her absolute limit. You wait for me on the boat," she ordered softly, her voice firm but strained. "This is something I'll handle myself." I hesitated, ready to respond, but the sight of her trembling frame, alongside her determination to stand straight, kept me silent. Beads of cold sweat glistened on her temple, a clear testament to her escalating exhaustion. Of all people, it was she who should have been resting. Yet the Dragon Maiden remained defiant. Attempting another spell, she teetered midair and almost fell until I darted forward to steady her. Her slight frame was surprisingly warm and soft beneath the folds of her clothing, a sensation that lingered anomalously on my palms. Once balanced, she met my gaze directly. At such close proximity, her unique fragrance, a light, herbal aroma with an underlying coolness, permeated the space between us. Her eyes, dark and tranquil, reflected the river's quiet determination. Her snow-like fairness was unblemished, exuding an almost ethereal purity. Caught off guard by the moment, the Dragon Maiden glanced away instantly, a faint flush cresting her alabaster cheeks. It seemed as though she had never experienced such closeness with anyone before. She subtly wriggled out of my support, prompting me to let go. Yet the lingering trace of her warmth remained pressed upon my hands. "You should take a break," I suggested earnestly. "Impossible," she murmured while shaking her head. Turning sharply, she ascended again without looking back, heading straight to re-engage. "You rest." And with that decisive remark, she resumed suppressing the remaining spirits. Shaking my head in resignation, I watched her accelerate her pace with every spell she cast. Though effective, raising her tally of defeated enemies drastically, her resulting energy depletion was blatantly evident. Sweat continued dripping down, and her movements grew sluggish. Her intensity bore the cost of extreme effort, and that effort was beginning to take its toll. Despite this, her sheer resolve left me no choice but to push myself harder. I urged the Thunder Bamboo Sword to fly faster, seeking any opportunity to assist through my own spellwork. Yet even so, it was clear that the methods we were employing were far from sufficient. The sheer number of spirits was overwhelming. Time after time, we were both encircled by dozens, sometimes scores of them, the air above smothered by coordinated magical strikes that blacked out the sky. Each encounter edged closer to untold disaster. And time after time, the Dragon Maiden intervened, deflecting their attacks before diving back in without rest. After repeated rescues, she was visibly faltering. Her breath was ragged, her gaze distant, and her forehead illuminated by beads of cold perspiration. Witnessing her condition was excruciating. Her body might as well have been cast from iron, but how long could she endure under these circumstances? Desperate, I turned to the Thunder Bamboo Sword. "Can you release lightning?" It replied affirmatively. Bolstered by this new tactic, I immediately gave my instruction. Water conducts electricity. Lightning would unleash devastating damage. The Thunder Bamboo Sword's body hummed as bright green light coursed through it. Streaks of electrical arcs, like radiant vines, sparked outward, their energy palpable but non-lethal to my grip. The arcs coalesced around the blade, intensifying until they formed a thunderbolt over 10 feet long. With a single flick, I unleashed it into the river below. The emerald lightning struck the water like a giant whip, its force unmatched. Here is the processed result based on your original text while retaining its paragraph structure, line breaks, and overall layout. Suddenly, centered around the thunder and lightning, the surrounding area within a kilometer bubbled like boiling water. A group of fish spirits leaped out of the water, convulsing and flipping belly up. Some lesser fish spirits with weaker cultivation floated stiffly like lifeless driftwood. It worked! I was overjoyed. The thunder bamboo's cultivation level had risen by 600 years, and the power of its lightning had drastically increased. The thunder bamboo hadn't struck with full force because it was specifically designed to suppress dark ghosts and evil spirits. If it had unleashed its full potential, at least 1/5 of those dozens of spirits earlier would have been killed outright, while a third would have suffered serious injuries. I thought, if the Thunder Mother were here, a single strike from her lightning would have rendered all the spirits unconscious. Unfortunately, she was busy taking care of her dim-witted son. I had hoped that the thunder bamboo's lightning would attract her attention, but that was no more than wishful thinking. Seizing the opportunity, I cast spells at the fastest pace possible. It took me nearly 3 minutes to prepare everything, but at last, I managed to catch up with the Long Jiang dragon lady. As I wiped the sweat off my brow, I sensed her looking over at me, her eyes filled with weariness and surprise. I nodded to signal her, and the thunder bamboo began condensing more lightning before unleashing another strike. There were still about 200 more that hadn't been dealt with. 2 more strikes should just about finish the job. I shouted at the Long Jiang dragon lady to call for a powerful spellcaster, leaving the rest to me. The thunder bamboo sword emitted a deafening crack as it condensed a green bolt of lightning over 10 meters long. I flung it with all my strength, and as the lightning struck, a huge cluster of fish spirits were paralyzed and floated to the surface. Gritting my teeth, I continued casting rapidly. I was reaching my limit, but there were still so many fish spirits left. One more strike from the thunder bamboo sword, electric light flashed and snapped. I hurled it down hard again, leaving almost all remaining spirits paralyzed. I forced myself to endure and performed the spells one by one, the process excruciating. Finally, when my fingertip left the forehead of the last fish spirit, all of the creatures had awakened, most still stiff and numb. I exhaled deeply. The thunder bamboo sword carried me back onto the boat. My legs gave way beneath me, and I nearly collapsed in exhaustion. The Long Jiang dragon lady followed, her complexion pale, her breath weak. Standing at the boat's bow, she nearly toppled over, clearly at her limit. Compared to killing the spirits outright, casting spells was far more draining, and trying to avoid excessive killing only made it even more restrictive. "Take a break," I said between heavy breaths. "Let's wait until the rest of the spirits swim over." The dragon lady nodded, but then her eyes closed and she fainted. I caught her just in time as she collapsed limply into my arms, trying to force her eyes open, unwilling to appear vulnerable. "Rest, it's fine," I said softly. She insisted on staying awake. I smiled and added, "Don't worry, I won't take advantage of you in your sleep." Like a lullaby, my words seemed to calm her. Finally, she closed her eyes, fully trusting me. Holding her, I took a deep breath. In the distance, Li Hu witnessed the scene. The jealousy on his face was obvious, and he looked completely dumbfounded. As one of the pills within me took effect, my strength recovered rapidly. Meanwhile, the remaining fish spirits swam closer. I gently set the dragon lady down, gripped the thunder bamboo sword, and flew out once more to continue. After much back and forth, all the fish spirits were finally conscious again. Gazing at the broken formation, surrounded by a dense mass of fish spirits, I heaved large breaths. But now another problem arose. If the water-stabilizing stone wasn't quickly replaced, all our efforts would have been for nothing. Given time, the fish spirits would become frenzied again. At that very moment, Li Hu returned. He didn't dare approach the dragon lady, so he just stood there, staring longingly at her as she rested. Pondering repeatedly, I decided the priority was to replace the water-stabilizing stone. But the journey to Mount Tian would take too long, there simply wasn't enough time. Trapped in this predicament, I noticed the dragon lady's fate dimming, a pallor of death shadowing her forehead. Would the heavens truly hold her accountable? Was the Long Jiang dragon lady destined to be executed? If so, wouldn't that mean I'd share her fate as well? Facing such an unavoidable death, how could we possibly break through this calamity? While I was stuck in anxiety, a sudden mass of lightning appeared in the sky, rapidly forming the shape of a person. It was the Thunder Mother. Relief washed over me. The earlier lightning strikes from the thunder bamboo had indeed summoned her. I hurriedly called out to her. But the Thunder Mother ignored me. My heart sank. This didn't bode well. In her hand, she held a peculiar oval-shaped stone, its surface uneven and dotted with specks of gold, radiating dense divine energy. Was this the water-stabilizing stone? Had the Thunder Mother retrieved it from the heavens? As this thought crossed my mind, I had an even worse premonition. The Thunder Mother tossed the stone into the water. Shortly after it sank, a humming sound emerged from the depths. Although the sound was unremarkable, it instantly brought all nearby spirits to clarity, their expressions dazed with confusion. Even their demonic aura was suppressed. What are you all waiting for? Leave now, the Thunder Mother's commanding voice rang out. Terrified at the sight of her, the spirits fled underwater in an instant, stirring massive waves. In just a few moments, thousands of spirits had vanished without a trace. If not for the surroundings' broken formations, I might have thought the chaos earlier had been an illusion. The Thunder Mother then produced a golden, radiant decree with a flick of her wrist. She stared at me and the Dragon Lady, her gaze lingering for nearly a full minute before sighing softly. Finally, she declared. Dragon Qingfeng, hear this decree. As a river dragon king, you failed to guard a single water-stabilizing stone, resulting in the deaths and injuries of over 2,000 mortals. Your sins are heavy, and I am deeply disappointed. Thus, I hereby decree your execution by decapitation to atone for your transgressions. As I listened to the Thunder Mother's words, my breathing quickened, and my mind went faint. Though I had anticipated this outcome, I never thought it would happen so swiftly. The Jade Emperor had outright ordered for the execution of the Long Jiang Dragon Lady, much like when Wei Zhan was authorized to behead the Jinghead Dragon King. The Jinghead Dragon King had altered rainfall readings and was punished. Meanwhile, the Long Jiang Dragon Lady had failed in her duties, leading to a disaster of this magnitude. I froze. This calamity was unbearable. Her death sentence had been sealed. Li Hu was equally stupefied. My anger surged. After all the effort the Dragon Lady and I had just poured into fixing everything, was this truly how it was going to end? The Thunder Mother glanced at me and added, as for you, Dragon 18, your assistance was insufficient. You will also face decapitation. My eyes flickered. Master had been right, the Dragon Lady and I were bound together in fate. In 1 hour, agents will descend to carry out the sentence. Prepare yourselves, the Thunder Mother said gravely as she closed the decree. I looked down at the sleeping Dragon Lady. Her long limbs curled up slightly, and she looked peaceful, likely dreaming sweet dreams. Yet I knew the heaven's decree had already been delivered. 1 hour? I had only 1 hour left? How was that possible? I hadn't yet killed the Dragon King, and now I was going to die? I hadn't helped Jiang Jiuxuan regain her physical form, hadn't annulled the engagement with her, and yet I had to face death so suddenly? This was not just the Dragon Lady's tribulation, it was my trial as well. The rage within me burned uncontrollably. I refused to accept this. Why? How could I, not even 19 years old, already be facing decapitation? I was filled with rage, feeling gravely wronged. It felt like an enormous pile of dirt had been dumped on me and the Yangtze Dragon Lady. Dianmu, today's events are far too strange, doesn't heaven know this? I asked coldly. Dianmu fell silent. This is the decree. I'm merely the messenger.